I never thought I would be the man sitting at this table, staring at a piece of paper that was never meant for my eyes. Not because it contained secrets, not because it contained money, not because it contained power, but because it contained fear. And when a father discovers fear hiding inside the heart of his son, he pays attention, especially when that fear is connected to love. Before you decide whether you should spend the rest of your life with him, there is something you need to know, something he never wanted to show you, something he folded away and buried beneath years of smiles, promises, public appearances, and quiet sacrifices. A contract, not the kind lawyers celebrate, not the kind businesses negotiate, a different kind of contract, the kind written by heartbreak, the kind signed in silence, the kind a person creates after trusting the wrong people one too many times. And if you are the woman standing beside him today, if you are the woman imagining wedding vows, if you are the woman planning a future, then perhaps you deserve to read it. Before we begin, may I ask something small from you? If this story speaks to your heart, please leave a like. Subscribe if conversations about love, family, and commitment matter to you. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what time it is where you live right now. And if someone you care about needs to hear this message, share it with them. Now let me tell you why that contract exists. You see, people often assume that successful men are difficult to hurt. They believe achievement creates armor. They believe recognition creates confidence. They believe admiration creates security. Life teaches a different lesson. Sometimes the people who appear strongest become the most careful with their hearts. Sometimes the people who seem untouchable carry wounds nobody notices. My son learned that lesson long ago, not because he was weak, because he loved sincerely. There is a difference. And if you have ever loved sincerely, you already understand what I mean. Have you ever trusted someone completely? Have you ever looked into another person's eyes and believed every word they said? Have you ever imagined a future so clearly that it felt more real than the present? Most people have. That is why heartbreak hurts. It doesn't destroy the future. It destroys the future you believed was already coming. I remember a conversation years ago. The details are not important. The emotions are. My son sat quietly. That alone was unusual. The world knows him as a man with opinions, ideas, plans, energy, movement. But that day there was silence. The kind of silence fathers recognize immediately. The kind that tells you a battle is taking place behind someone's eyes. I asked him a simple question. Are you happy? He answered too quickly. Whenever someone answers too quickly, I become suspicious. Because genuine happiness doesn't rush to defend itself. It simply exists. He smiled, said everything was fine, changed the subject, and that was when I knew everything was not fine. A father notices these things, not because fathers are always wise, but because we spend years studying our children without realizing it. We recognize changes nobody else sees, a hesitation, a forced laugh, an exhausted smile, a look that lasts 1 second longer than usual. And what I saw that day concerned me. Not because a relationship was ending. Relationships end. Not because somebody disappointed him. People disappoint each other every day. What concerned me was something deeper. He was beginning to question whether genuine love still existed. That frightened me, more than failure, more than criticism, more than loneliness. Because once a person begins doubting love itself, every future relationship becomes heavier, every promise becomes suspicious, every act of kindness becomes questionable, every declaration of affection comes attached to a silent question. Why? Why do you love me? Why are you here? What do you really want? And that question can quietly poison even the healthiest relationship. Perhaps you've experienced it yourself. Perhaps someone hurt you years ago and people are still paying for mistakes they never made. That happens more often than people admit. Pain travels forward, sometimes for decades. The contract I found was filled with those questions. No signatures, no witnesses, no legal language, just sentences, private sentences, painfully honest sentences. One line in particular stayed with me. It read, "If she loves me only when life is easy, she does not love me." I stared at those words for a long time, because I knew exactly where they came from. Not one relationship. Many. Not one disappointment. Many. The world sees successful people surrounded by admiration. What it rarely sees is uncertainty. Who stays when the spotlight fades? Who stays when mistakes happen? Who stays when public opinion changes? Who stays when life becomes inconvenient? Those questions matter. Marriage is easy during celebrations. Marriage reveals itself during suffering. Anyone can hold your hand during victory. The real test is whether they reach for your hand during defeat. That is why I worry. Not because I doubt love, because I respect it. Love is too important to gamble on appearances, too important to build on attraction alone, too important to trust to good intentions without evidence. A lifetime is a long time, and a wrong partner can turn decades into regrets. A right partner can turn hardships into memories worth keeping. The difference is enormous. You know what concerns me most about modern relationships? People talk endlessly about finding the right person. Very few talk about becoming the right person. Everyone wants loyalty. Few practice it. Everyone wants honesty. Few tell uncomfortable truths. Everyone wants commitment. Few understand sacrifice. Yet sacrifice is where love proves itself. Without sacrifice, love remains a beautiful idea. With sacrifice, it becomes a promise. And promises are what build families. I am an old man now, old enough to have seen marriages survive impossible circumstances, old enough to have seen marriages collapse despite having every advantage. Do you know what separated them? Not money, not status, not beauty. Character. Always character. Character decides what happens after disappointment. Character decides what happens after arguments. Character decides what happens after trust is tested. Character decides whether two people grow together or slowly become strangers. That is why the contract mattered. It wasn't measuring perfection, it was searching for character. And buried several pages later, I found the sentence that made me put the papers down and walk away from the table. Because for the first time I understood what my son feared most. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't loneliness. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was something much worse. And before I tell you what that was, there is something else you need to understand about the woman he believed could change everything. The woman he believed could change everything was not the woman who agreed with him all the time. She was not the woman who admired him the most. She was not the woman who told him exactly what he wanted to hear. In fact, if I'm honest, some of their most important conversations began with disagreement. That surprises people. Many assume compatibility means constant harmony. It does not. Harmony without honesty is performance, and performance cannot survive a lifetime. A marriage built on performance eventually collapses from exhaustion. The strongest relationships I have ever witnessed were not free of conflict. They were free of deception. There is a difference, a very important difference. The older I become, the more I realize that love is not measured by how often two people smile together. It is measured by how truthfully they suffer together. Anyone can create beautiful moments. Vacations create beautiful moments. Celebrations create beautiful moments. Success creates beautiful moments. But ordinary Tuesday afternoons create marriages. Unexpected disappointments create marriages. Difficult conversations create marriages. Moments when two people could easily walk away but choose to stay create marriages. That was the standard hidden inside the contract. Not perfection, endurance, not admiration, loyalty, not excitement, commitment. I remember asking my son something years ago, a question that made him uncomfortable. Fathers occasionally have that privilege. I asked him, if everything disappeared tomorrow, who would still be standing beside you? The room became quiet. Not because he lacked an answer, because he knew the answer mattered. Have you ever asked yourself that question? Not who celebrates you, not who praises you, not who needs you, who remains when there is nothing to gain. That answer reveals more about your relationships than years of conversation. And perhaps that is why genuine love has become so difficult for many people to recognize. The world has become very skilled at imitation. People imitate affection. People imitate concern. People imitate loyalty. People imitate commitment. But imitation eventually fails under pressure. Real character does not. The contract understood that. One page contained a sentence I have never forgotten. If she only understands the version of me that succeeds, she does not know me. I read that line several times, because it was painfully true. Most people fall in love with a version. Very few fall in love with a whole person. They fall in love with confidence, not insecurity. Achievement, not doubt. Strength, not weakness. The problem is that human beings are not collections of strengths. We are collections of contradictions. A man can be brave and afraid, confident and uncertain, strong and exhausted, successful and lonely, loving and damaged. The right partner understands all of it, not just the attractive parts, all of it. And if you are considering marriage, I want you to think carefully about something. Do you love the person? Or do you love the story attached to the person? Because those are not the same thing. Stories change, titles change, circumstances change, life changes, the person remains. Many relationships fail because one partner married a story. Then reality arrived. Reality always arrives. The contract was trying to protect against that. Not because my son distrusted women. People misunderstand that. Pain does not always create distrust. Sometimes it creates caution. And caution is not the same thing. If someone touches a hot stove once, they learn. If someone touches it repeatedly, they become careful. That is not bitterness, that is experience. I have watched people criticize caution as if it were weakness. I disagree. Blind trust is easy. Wise trust requires courage. Wise trust requires patience. Wise trust requires observation. It requires paying attention to actions when words become convenient. The older I become, the less interested I am in declarations. I am interested in patterns. Patterns reveal truth. Anyone can promise forever. How many people build forever? Anyone can say they care. How many people continue caring when caring becomes difficult? Anyone can claim loyalty. How many people remain loyal when temptation appears? Those questions matter more than romance, more than chemistry, more than attraction. Because attraction begins relationships. Character sustains them. One evening, long after everyone else had gone home, I found myself thinking about something that had troubled me for years. Why do so many intelligent people make poor relationship choices? The answer finally came to me. Because intelligence cannot protect the heart. A brilliant mind can still believe a beautiful lie. A successful person can still ignore warning signs. An accomplished individual can still mistake attention for love. Human beings do it every day. Perhaps you have too. I know I have. Life humbles all of us eventually. The contract contained another uncomfortable truth, one that many people would not appreciate hearing. It said, "Love should make life stronger, not more confusing." Simple words, but powerful, because confusion has become strangely romanticized. People call uncertainty passion. They call instability excitement. They call emotional chaos chemistry. Then they wonder why their relationships leave them exhausted. Love should not constantly leave you guessing. Love should not require endless decoding. Love should not feel like a courtroom where trust is permanently on trial. Healthy love creates clarity. Healthy love creates safety. Healthy love creates peace. Not perfect peace, but enough peace to build a future. Without peace, a relationship becomes survival. And survival is not the purpose of marriage. Marriage should create a home, not a battlefield, a refuge, not a competition, a partnership, not an investigation. That realization changed the way I viewed the contract. Initially, I thought it was about protection. Eventually, I realized it was about hope. A man does not create standards because he has given up on love. He creates standards because he still believes love is worth protecting. There is a difference, a very important difference. And then I reached the final pages. Those pages were different, less guarded, more vulnerable, almost painful to read. The confidence disappeared. The caution disappeared. The analysis disappeared. What remained was a man speaking honestly about what he wanted most. Not admiration, not attention, not validation. Love. Simple, genuine, enduring love. The kind that survives bad years. The kind that survives misunderstandings. The kind that survives disappointment. The kind that survives reality. There was one final statement written there. No dramatic language, no complexity. Just a sentence. A sentence so honest that it revealed everything. And when I read it, I finally understood why the contract had been hidden from everyone, because it exposed the deepest vulnerability a person can possess. The fear that after all the success, after all the achievements, after all the years, someone might still be loved for everything except who they truly are. And what happened after that realization changed the course of a relationship in a way neither of us expected. Because a conversation took place. A conversation that was never supposed to happen. A conversation that revealed a truth even the contract itself had failed to capture. And when that truth finally came out, it forced everyone involved to make a choice that would determine the future forever. The conversation happened on an ordinary evening. No dramatic setting, no life-changing announcement waiting in the shadows, no audience, no cameras, no celebration. Just two people sitting across from one another with years of experience between them and a future neither fully understood. Funny how life works. The moments that transform us rarely announce themselves. The biggest decisions often arrive disguised as ordinary conversations. I remember looking at my son that evening and realizing something I had missed for far too long. As fathers, we spend years trying to protect our children from pain. We teach them how to avoid mistakes, how to recognize danger, how to defend themselves against people who may not have good intentions. What we rarely learn is that eventually our children become adults. And once they become adults, protection changes. You can no longer choose for them. You can no longer shield them from every disappointment. You can no longer stand between them and heartbreak. At some point, all you can do is tell the truth and hope they carry it with them. That evening, I decided to tell the truth. Not the comfortable truth, the difficult truth, the truth that most fathers keep to themselves. I said, "You know what worries me most?" He looked at me, waiting. I said, "I worry that you've become so accustomed to being needed that you may struggle to recognize when you're genuinely loved." The room became quiet, very quiet, because some truths do not invite immediate responses. Some truths require reflection, and this was one of them. Have you ever noticed how often people confuse need with love? It happens everywhere. Someone depends on you, someone admires you, someone wants your attention, someone enjoys your support, someone enjoys the life you help create. And slowly the lines begin to blur. You start wondering whether they love you, or whether they love what you provide. The difference is enormous. One creates a future. The other creates an arrangement. A marriage cannot survive as an arrangement. Eventually, the illusion collapses. Eventually, reality arrives. Eventually, both people discover what was actually holding the relationship together. That is why I have always believed that before marriage, every person should ask one terrifying question. If everything changed tomorrow, would this person still choose me? Not out of obligation. Not out of convenience, not out of fear. Would they choose me freely? Again and again. Year after year, that is the question that matters. Everything else is secondary. The contract understood that. But the contract was incomplete, because love cannot be understood entirely through caution. Love also requires courage. The courage to trust, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to stop treating every future relationship as punishment for a previous one. That was the lesson my son still needed to learn. And perhaps it is a lesson some of you need to learn as well. Have you ever met someone wonderful but struggled to trust them because of what somebody else did years earlier? Have you ever allowed an old wound to interfere with a new beginning? Many people have, more than they realize. Pain has a strange habit of disguising itself as wisdom. Sometimes it protects us. Sometimes it imprisons us. Knowing the difference requires maturity. I remember saying something that surprised even me. I told him, "The right woman is not the one who proves every fear wrong." He frowned, confused. So I continued, "The right woman is the one who remains honest enough to stay even after she learns about those fears. Because nobody enters marriage untouched. Nobody. Every person arrives carrying memories, disappointments, regrets, scars, lessons, insecurities, dreams, and hidden fears. The question is not whether those things exist. The question is whether two people can carry them together. That is what commitment really means. Commitment is not standing beside someone when they are easy to love. Commitment is standing beside them after discovering the complicated parts, the difficult parts, the vulnerable parts, the human parts. I think modern relationships sometimes forget this. People search endlessly for perfection, perfect compatibility, perfect chemistry, perfect timing, perfect circumstances. Meanwhile, real love quietly waits elsewhere. Real love waits inside imperfection, inside forgiveness, inside patience, inside growth, inside two people choosing each other despite the challenges. Not because challenges are romantic, because challenges are inevitable. The years teach that lesson eventually. Life teaches it eventually. Marriage certainly teaches it eventually. You discover that loyalty matters more than excitement, respect matters more than attraction, trust matters more than appearances, character matters more than charm, and consistency matters more than promises. Promises sound beautiful. Consistency builds families. As our conversation continued, I noticed something changing in him. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but noticeably. The defensiveness was disappearing. The caution was softening. The walls were lowering. And beneath all the success, all the confidence, all the experience, I saw something every father recognizes instantly. A son who simply wanted to be loved, not managed, not admired, not used, not analyzed, loved, truly loved. That desire never leaves us. It exists at 20. It exists at 40. It exists at 70. Human beings never outgrow the need for genuine connection. No amount of achievement replaces it. No amount of recognition replaces it. No amount of success replaces it. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. Someone who sees us clearly and stays. Someone who understands our flaws and stays. Someone who witnesses our failures and stays. Someone who knows our fears and stays. That is love. Not perfection, presence, steady presence, reliable presence, lifelong presence. Eventually, I asked him a final question, a question I had been carrying for years. I asked, if she reads every page of that contract, what do you hope she understands? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared out the window, thinking, remembering, searching for the right words. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, I hope she understands that none of it was written because I stopped believing in love. I nodded, because I already knew, but I wanted to hear the rest. He continued, I wrote it because I still believe in love enough to protect it. There it was, the truth, the real truth, not fear, not distrust, not bitterness, hope. The contract had never been a wall, it had been a prayer disguised as caution, a hope disguised as standards, a dream disguised as protection, the dream that one day somebody would arrive and choose him for reasons that could never be measured, reasons that would survive change, reasons that would survive time, reasons that would survive difficulty, reasons that would survive reality, and suddenly everything made sense. The pages, the questions, the fears, the conditions, the expectations, all of it pointed toward one simple desire, forever, not temporary affection, not conditional commitment, forever. The older I become, the more I believe forever is built differently than people imagine. Forever is built in ordinary moments, in honesty, in patience, in forgiveness, in respect, in loyalty, in daily decisions nobody else sees. Forever is built when two people continue choosing each other after the excitement becomes familiarity, after the mystery becomes understanding, after the fantasy becomes reality. That is where real love begins, not at the wedding, after it, not during the promise, after it, not when life is easy, when life becomes difficult. That is when love reveals its true character. So if you are standing at the edge of commitment, if you are wondering whether someone deserves your future, if you are questioning whether a relationship can survive the years ahead, look beyond attraction, look beyond appearances, look beyond temporary emotions, look at character, look at honesty, look at consistency, look at loyalty, look at the way they treat people when nothing is being gained, look at the way they handle disappointment, look at the way they respond to truth, because those things predict the future far better than chemistry ever will. And if you find someone who chooses you honestly, someone who respects you deeply, someone who remains loyal when life becomes complicated, someone who values family, someone who protects trust, someone who tells the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable, hold on to that person, not because perfect people are rare, because committed people are rare, and committed people build extraordinary lives together. That is the lesson hidden inside every page of that contract. Not fear, not suspicion, not control. Love. The kind of love that hopes. The kind of love that endures. The kind of love that protects. The kind of love that stays. And in the end, after all the conversations, all the worries, all the lessons, all the years, I realize something every father eventually learns. You cannot choose who your child loves. You cannot walk their path for them. You cannot guarantee their happiness. But you can pray they find someone worthy of their heart, someone worthy of their trust, someone worthy of forever. Because in the end, love is not about finding the perfect person. It is about finding the person who continues choosing the imperfect person beside them, year after year, season after season, challenge after challenge, for the rest of their lives.